In a typical mathematical model, people are represented as particles that take small steps in random directions. We call that process a random walk. If one person is infected and contagious, the virus will spread to those in close proximity, and those people will themselves become contagious. The virus will spread radially outward away from the first infection point. It starts at one point and it only affects those in the immediate vicinity. But over time, the virus spreads everywhere. It is similar to putting a heat spot on a thin plate and observing the temperature rise around the spot as time goes on. That is called standard diffusion. We can track the number of people infected in this process. Let's go back to the start and examine the process again. The blue curve shows the total number of cases. The number of cases grows exponentially fast at the beginning, when most particles around an infected particle have not yet been exposed to the virus. Exponential growth slows to linear growth when only the particles on the fringe can spread the virus. The curve, called a logistic curve, will eventually flatten as soon as the entire population has been exposed. But of course, that is not how people behave in real life. On a typical day, when you are not confined, you wake up, eat breakfast, take a shower, and go to school or work. At work, you have meetings, get coffee with colleagues, go to lunch, and have more meetings. After work, you go to the store, browse in the aisles, chat with Mary, who you haven't seen for weeks. So there is a random walk-like behavior when you're at home, at school, at the store, but the particles can travel between each place. This type of process is called a levy flight. It turns out that many species behave this way. So why is it important to make this distinction? The resulting diffusion, called anomalous diffusion, leads to a much faster spread. A contagious person can start outbreaks at many different places, and the spread grows exponentially fast at each outbreak site. This is the type of spread that we saw as the coronavirus emerged worldwide, and is continuing to spread. Let's consider a simple model just to illustrate the qualitative trends and see what we can learn. Herd immunity is not taken into consideration. In our simplified model, each person is a household, a work or school network, and a social network. Every day, each person spends a considerable amount of time with all three groups. If one person has the virus, it will affect all three of these networks, with each new pocket of infection starting a logistic curve in its exponential growth stage. So the spread is then much faster now that we have effectively shuffled the population 3 times. Let's start with a city of 100 people with no mask and no social distancing. Let's represent each person with a dot. The dot is blue for healthy, red for infected, and green for recovered people. The incubation period has been obtained in the literature. A person is contagious 2 to 3 days before to 10 days after incubation. If someone has symptoms, they are immediately removed from the active population. Those who recover don't get reinfected. The household composition follows US demographics, including age groups. The elderly group has a social network, but doesn't go to work. We use the rates from the literature, and the MATLAB code can be downloaded from the description. Let's speed things up a bit. It takes, in this case, just 14 days to infect the entire population. Note, any parameters that can be tweaked can produce quite different outcomes, so this tool can only offer qualitative insights. We can boost the number of people and observe the trends. We don't show the work and social network interactions anymore, but they happen in the background. From the literature, you have a 17% chance to catch the virus if someone who is infected comes close enough to you if nobody wears a mask. In a city of 10,000 people, even with cautious parameters, it only takes about 60 days for the virus to spread to the entire population. Let's see what happens if everyone wears a mask. You have a 3 to 17% chance, depending on the quality of the mask, to catch the virus if someone who's infected comes close enough to you if everyone wears a mask. We set it to 3% here. The spread has drastically slowed down. In about 60 days, only 30 people have been infected. Why is this important? It leaves time to do contact tracing, contain, and ultimately stop the spread. Let's now examine a college campus. It is one of the environments that are the most conducive for the virus to spread, because the population shuffles at each class hour. Here's how it works in the background for 100 students. The assumptions can be found in the descriptions. Now let's crank it up to 7,000 students. No mask, no social distancing. It takes about 30 days for everyone to be infected. Now, assume that the 7,000 students wear a mask and that we reduce the class sizes by a third. Mask and class size reduction seems to be the solution adopted by many schools. Note that we assume that the only interactions between students occur during classes and in the dorms. We don't account for parties or various get-togethers. Masks and social distancing slow down the spread considerably, but contact tracing is near impossible because of the constant shuffling of the population. We would have to quarantine the whole campus. Although every run gives a similar result when nobody wears a mask, once people do wear a mask and social distance, the model shows that, at some point, the spread is likely to happen. Now what? Is there a safe way to open schools? An option is to create closed networks. In each closed network, a set of students attends the same classes, shares dorm rooms, and eats together. If one person develops symptoms, only that bubble will isolate and nobody else will be at risk. Settings where the population is constantly shuffled are a haven for a virus to spread. If well organized, closed networks seem to be a much safer and appropriate way to reopen schools. Please stay safe, wear a mask.